Welcome to Introduction to Programming. In this session, we're just going to set up your computer with Python so that you can get started on the lessons in the next video. Learning how to code is a really useful skill. Even if you're not planning on doing that as your main part of your career, if you have some repetitive task like data entry, or just want to move files around on your computer, or you want to download a whole bunch of images from the internet, but you don't want to do it one at a time, learning how to code can just make everything a lot easier and a lot faster. And the most important thing about coding is coders are lazy, and we want to come up with the most efficient way to accomplish our goals. The language that we're going to be using for writing our code is called Python. The first thing we're going to do is install Python. After that, we're going to install a couple other programs and just make our lives a little bit nicer by setting up our environment. So let's go to python.org and click Downloads and download the latest version. Right now there are two versions available, either Python 2.x or Python 3.x, and I'm going to suggest you download the current latest version of 2, which is, for me, 2.7.8. The difference between the versions are just a little bit of syntactical difference, a little different words that they might use. But in general, just use whatever is the most current version for you. Now we simply have to click Next a whole bunch of times, and click OK, all that kind of stuff, and Python will now be installed onto your C drive in the Python 2.7 folder. And that's it, Python is installed. When most of you are thinking of computer programs, you're probably thinking of either apps, or your web browser, or your Word document editor, and a lot of these programs basically have graphics. You've noticed they take up space in your screen, you can click things, there are buttons, and I just want to say, don't get ahead of yourself. I'm not going to be covering that quite yet. First, what we're going to do is we're just going to deal with a text interface, and to do this, we're going to use the command line. Open up a command prompt by opening the file cmd.exe, which is located in Programs, Windows System, and then Command Prompt if you're using your Start menu, or if you're on Windows 8 or something like that, you can just press Windows and type cmd and press Enter, or you can search your hard drive for a file called cmd.exe and eventually you'll find it. And we find ourselves here with this little black box and a prompt. The path is C users, whatever your username is, and you'll see this little arrow and a blinking underline. This arrow and the blinking cursor means type a command and then press Enter to run the command. After you run a command, the blinking cursor will disappear while the command gets executed, and when it's finished, you will see the path and the prompt appear again. The path represents the current folder that you're operating inside of. So we'll type our first command. Put the path to where Python was installed, and then /python.exe. And you'll see a new prompt, which is 3 greater than signs. This also means type a command, and then press Enter. So let's get started. Let's just do some simple commands to make sure it's working. If you type in 2 + 2, the next line will print out the number 4, and then it will give you another prompt. We can type x = 5, and then it will give us a prompt. And when we type x + 2, it'll print out the answer 7. So basically, if we didn't want to learn anything more about how Python works or how to write code, we can use Python as a calculator. To quit out of Python, we just type the word quit and then an open parenthesis and a closed parenthesis. When we press Enter, we end up back at the path with the prompt in the command line interface. Okay, so you can code all of your code in Python directly like that, if you wanted to. I don't recommend it because it makes rerunning your code, if you wanted to save it and run it later, much more difficult and tedious. In part 2, we're going to discuss some of the Windows-specific setup, as well as how to interact with the command line.